Okay. Prerequisite to this demo. It's not particularly interesting, but I will show you anyway. So this is the standalone vulnerability page Mark 1, I would say. It's nothing special. It just pulls in the title, the description, and some bits and pieces from the data. We're getting some of it from the vulnerability itself and some of it from the finding that created that vulnerability. So we've got a lot of the functionality, well, a lot of the data, sorry, that we currently had on vulnerabilities. But we are missing all the interaction stuff, you know, like the status switcher and the comments and things. But this is the first iteration. It's got a URL that you can link to. My next step is to create the separate list so that you can see all of them rather than having to guess the ID, which is not a fun game. But here's where we are. This is step number one. We're actually starting to see something in the product that we can look at and start to play with. So just to keep you all updated on where we are with that. Any questions at this point? I imagine not many.
I'll start. What parts are coming from findings?
Good question. 2 seconds. I'll get the. So, from findings, the description has come from the finding. The location, sorry, the image and the namespace are coming from the location on the finding. Links are coming from the finding. Identifiers are coming from the shorter list. Really, is the things that are coming from the vulnerability. That's the title and severity, confidence, and report type. Everything else is coming from the finding, which at the moment there's only one finding, but it's technically just the first finding in this case. Yeah.
So from vulnerability description, title, what were the other 2 attributes?
No, description's not on the vulnerability. Description's on the title. Sorry, description's on the finding. Mm-hmm. So from vulnerability, I'll go a little slower. So if someone's typing it, it's a bit easier for them. Sorry. We get the state. We get when the vulnerability was created. We get the title, severity, confidence, and report type. Everything else has been pulled off the finding.
Does this indicate that the vulnerabilities API is too light, too narrow?
Kind of. So when I'm saying we're getting it off the finding, we're getting that finding off the vulnerability. So technically we're getting it off the vulnerability as well, but yeah, I mean, so getting it from the finding was kind of the workaround we decided before to quickly add that information to the vulnerability API just by including that finding as well.
Okay.
I would say some of this is based on the design decision that we would have one vulnerability linked to multiple findings, which could have different data for those points that we're pulling from the finding. So when, you know, for that decision, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have all of that data on the vulnerability, since it could be different for the different findings, if that makes sense. That's
okay.
History,
no,
I guess.
It does.
I guess.
I'm going to be annoying. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to be annoying towards PM and UX. This is debt that's going to have to be paid down before we get to multiple findings per one vulnerability. So this adds some weight to it. I don't know that I think I would argue that it's a correct decision to get to a fast MVC or a fast V1, but this will add work. And so I want to make sure that y'all hear that.
So one question regarding findings, they will not be linkable anyway, right? So it's always just we can show data on them, or we don't have like a page where we can link to right now, right?
Not right now, I would argue, but that's my opinion. I think that they will be eventually, but that's my assertion on the direction we should go. And with that, I'm going to be quiet and let the people that have the answers actually say that.
So we kind of link to findings in that we link to the pipeline that discovered that vulnerability, which is going to have a security tab, which is going to have a list of findings. So not really is maybe the answer.
I guess, and I mean, my naive view of this, and feel free to shoot it down, but like right now we have a vulnerability, and since there's only one finding, it doesn't make sense to have like a separate page to show that finding. When we do have that, we there'll be a link on the vulnerability to view each of the different findings somehow. And at that point, I think that's a matter of just like not showing that stuff that's different on the findings on the vulnerability page. So I don't think it doesn't, that, again, naive view, like that doesn't sound like a whole lot of tech debt to me, but again, shoot it down.
Okay.
Let me rephrase. It may not be tech debt, but we have an abstraction leak nonetheless if we're going to have multiple findings for one vulnerability.
I mean, I think that's one solution to solve a problem one-to-many, where there's many similar things that were detected and we're creating vulnerabilities, right? There's also another opportunity that we could do, which is creating a group of vulnerabilities that are similar, that need to be dealt with in a similar way, much like one-to-many findings, just a grouping of vulnerabilities, almost as if there was like an epic. It's another way to solve that problem. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an engineering solution to solve the user's problem of multiple similar CVEs or multiple similar vulnerabilities of the same type being grouped together and dealt with in a remediation flow, right? So that's why one-to-many was so tough. We failed to launch this whole project. But by going one-to-one, we were able to have focus. So I think we're now opening up doors to multiple different solutions that could be heavy engineering or very, very, very light engineering, but heavier on the UX interpretation of that.
I'll be quiet in case there's other questions.
I have a really ignorant question as well. If we were to go down that route of creating pages per finding, is there a concern that, especially with some of this, like some of the scanners throwing up lots of false positives, that those are the things that are going to be dismissed or deleted, that we're just going to be generating a lot of sort of I guess, pages that would quickly be deleted, or if not deleted, that we're just going to have just sort of this large contingent of things that are taking up space, but we don't really, the user doesn't really need over time.
I mean, the only thing they'll need is a log, right?
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is, if we have a page, is that too heavy weight for the findings themselves? Is having something linked from the vulnerability page or other parts of the application where we would want to keep it long term?
I mean, I guess if we're doing single findings per vulnerability to start with, we'll find out the answer to that relatively soon.
Yeah, I think findings are really just when they need to be interacted with, they're basically not in master yet. So they're newer introduced. Whereas the vulnerability, that's something that's been there, has been run on the pipeline, is now in master, and is something that needs to be dealt with. So that's where a page and a listing makes sense for the vulnerability. because they can remediate, they can track, they can log, they can download the reports and all that stuff and do all the heavy lifting for that. The finding itself is just a way for us to populate this vulnerability list with data that then can be housed in a database with our vulnerability. So, to me, if the user never knows what a finding is, that's fine, right? That's kind of the path we went down anyways. They're probably never going to see the word finding. They need to see the vulnerability or the new thing they introduced in the pipeline that they need to deal with or not deal with, and it gets kicked into a vulnerability.
Anything else we should discuss? I'm writing notes and multitasking. Nothing else?
Is there?
Go ahead.
Is there anything else that we haven't mentioned that the back end needs to do that's holding up the front end?
I guess it's not really holding us up, but the automatic promotion thing would be lovely. I'm manually doing it at the moment, so it's not holding me up. It's just making it a bit slower, I guess.
Sorry. Yes,
then,
that is close to being merged. It's in review. Sorry, should have.
Yeah.
Put that
No,
in
I knew it was, to be honest.
Okay. Okay.
And status switching, I guess. I mean, Daniel's working on that, so I can't really say. But I think what we've got now is maybe enough to get started. I don't know. I have to ask Daniel. But I say my next step is to create the list of vulnerabilities, which I've got already. So right now, no, I'm not blocked.
Okay. Great.
So I just have one question that can be taken care of offline. Is who would be the best person to really kind of explain to me the technical differences between a vulnerability and a finding? I think that I understand it, but I just kind of want to make sure that I understand it correctly. So, I mean, Sam or Ross or someone else, if someone could help me kind of formulate exactly what the difference is and technically in the back end, how we're identifying those, I would appreciate it. But yeah, like I said, it can be done offline unless other people are unclear about that.
I think that would be a great meeting to have, and probably record it, because I don't think you're the only person that has that question. And I also don't, I'd be happy to be on that call, but I don't think I should be the only one on that call.
I mean, I'll join you on it, and we can pick each other up where we have gaps.
Likewise, I can be there.
Yeah.
Just about to say, Andy, you need to be on that, because it's taken me longer than admittedly it probably should, but the idea that the vulnerabilities are actually things that have been merged into the master branch is kind of a subtle point, but a very important one in realizing what the difference is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess I'll send out an invite to everyone. I guess I'll just include everybody that's on this meeting, and you know, whoever wants to join can join.
Risk of overloading that conversation, since we've had that. I'm not picking on anybody, but we've had a conversation of multiple times about what's a vulnerability and what's a finding, and it's something that keeps coming up. The output of that should be a video and/or documentation explaining the difference, just to go ahead and get in front of it.
Yeah, we're going to have to explain this to our users, right, and our customers, and it's probably going to be in docs. So yeah. Good to have maybe explain it like I'm 5, also explain it like kind of know this.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be great if we had just one location where we just, hey, this is vulnerability, this is a finding, this is a difference, and this is why. We should certainly get there.
Yeah, we have
Otherwise-
some visuals, but we don't have everything in like one cohesive place. So I can aggregate some things together for that meeting.
Okay. Anything else? All right, well, let's close this down. So thank you everybody for your time and attention. We have something visible. That's exciting. So it's very exciting. Let's keep making this thing happen. And if you need anything, please shout out in Slack in the dedicated channel for this particular subject. And and please be noisy early. That way we can try to get some momentum going here. So thank you. We'll talk soon.